What is going on, YouTube? Thanks for taking the time to come check out this video. My name is Josh. This is actually the first video on this new channel that I'm making that's going to basically be centered around photography and videography, and it might have things such as lens reviews, camera body reviews, tutorials, or just other overall photography and videography business and way of life videos. So hopefully you guys will come and check out my future videos, but let's get into this video right now, which is going to be, drumroll please, why I've swapped to Fuji 3 times from full frame cameras and why I'm finally sticking with them. Reason number one why I keep coming back to Fuji has to do with value, or features is another way you could say it. I think maybe I should probably kind of give you an idea of what my train of thought would be like whenever I would be on Fuji or on both sides really. So this is basically what would happen. Started out with Fuji, and then I was convinced through the hype of YouTube videos and other photographers that my pictures would never be as good because I can't get a shallow depth of field as a 1.4 or 1.2 lens. So I would kind of start out kind of resisting the idea, knowing that my pictures were good enough, and then eventually it'd wear down on me and I would see that nice shiny new, full frame model camera and I would want to flip. So I'd sell all my Fuji stuff, I'd go over, and then probably within an hour of receiving my new toy, my new full frame camera, realized that there was a feature or a feature set that they didn't even have on the new camera. And you might say that that's my fault, that I should have done more research or I should have known what my needs were. But you can ask anybody who knows me. I really painstakingly weigh out the pros and cons when I'm looking to swap cameras or a camera system. So it wasn't something I took lightly. It just happened that there was just so many features that I didn't realize that Fuji offered. And really, particularly with their X-T3 camera, there's nothing that they're withholding from you. You can shoot sports, you can shoot landscape, portraits, you can shoot professional video. If you're like a wedding videographer, or you make commercials, or you do corporate stuff, the video coming out of the X-T3 is more than good enough. I mean, you've got 4K up to 60 frames a second, 10-bit internal, 420. You can do 422 if you're recording to external recorder. It gives you everything. You don't have to sacrifice on anything except maybe the size of the sensor. So that's really the main reason why I kept coming back. There's some other small things like how much I love the dials on the Fuji, or just the way it looks, or the size of it. And I'm gonna kind of get into that on another point. But yeah, that's number one, guys. So reason number two has to do with image quality. Now, a lot of full frame photographers are gonna tell you that the image quality on a crop sensor camera isn't as good. And maybe if you're zooming in like 200%, 400%, maybe you might be able to see a slight sharpness difference, or maybe the dynamic range isn't quite as good. But I can promise you that the results are so close that you probably won't even notice. The image quality is outstanding. You really don't see much of a difference. And that's not to mention that Fuji has their own advantage of the fact that they've got their own color science and their own way of rendering things. A lot of people say that they love the Fuji film simulations that you can use for JPEGs, and you can use it for RAW as well. There's just another way of going about it that you have to kind of do within Lightroom. But you can use those color profiles or those film simulations to help give you an idea when you're looking through the viewfinder about how your raw image is going to look once you've edited it. So that is something that I love, and something that I do miss the colors when I go over to another camera system. Now, I don't think colors are the end-all be-all of why a certain camera system is better, because I think that you can edit it for the most part. But if you like the way it looks when it comes out of camera, that's a really big perk. Another part of image quality would be the high ISO performance. That's another thing that people love to kind of harp on APSC for. And I will tell you that on Fuji cameras, the high ISO is really good. Now, it's not as clean as full frame. I will say that I think you'll notice probably about a stop difference in ISO. So like 12,800 on a Fuji looks like 6,400 on a full frame. But what I will say is that the ISO, the noise, it looks like film grain. So it doesn't have a lot of color noise, and it's very kind of like aesthetically pleasing. So if you do have to go, sorry, we got a train passing. I'll wait a moment. No joke, guys. I think I waited 5 minutes for that train to pass. That was the longest train I have ever heard. When it comes to the noise, it's very subjective. Every photographer has their own opinion on how much noise that they're willing to kind of deal with in their image. So I would say that the best thing you can do is to go online, try to find some high ISO raw images that you can download and then go into Lightroom and kind of play with. And I think you'll be pretty happy. I won't say that the Fuji does as good a job at high ISO as like a Sony a7 III or a D750, but it holds its own. And honestly, if you're a professional photographer and you are shooting in environments where you have to get over, say, ISO 6400, you're probably going to want to use flash or off-camera flash. If you are the type of photographer who's doing a ton of church weddings where they won't let you use flash, then yes, go with the full frame, because yeah, I get it, you gotta have the best low light capability that you can get. But most wedding photographers, they think that they live and die by the high ISO performance of their camera, and it's really not that big a deal. Just use some flash. You probably already are, even on your full frame cameras. So that's just my opinion. And I think that's going to do it for the image quality section. It really is very, very good and super comparable to full frame. Reason number 3 is going to have to do with the size. So it's kind of a minor issue, but it is small enough. Well, I should say the Fuji X-T3, the X-T2, the XH1, sorry, not the XH1, the X-T1. And I guess you could say the X-T20, X-T30, they're so small that with a small enough lens, you can almost pocket them. But they're also capable of being built up to the point to where you can turn it into a full-blown professional rig if you want, even as a videographer. So that's just like kind of a minor point, but it is something that you really begin to appreciate when you move into a bigger body. I remember when I got my Nikon Z5, I was really pumped because I thought that the size was going to be perfect, and it really didn't seem that much smaller than my D750. I mean, like, it was, but it wasn't at the same time. It wasn't a big enough size difference that made me feel like, ooh, this is just a camera I can use for traveling and all this kind of stuff. And then you got full frame lenses are bigger and everything. So for me, having that size difference was pretty important and really awesome, and it makes the difference between me wanting to take my camera wherever I go and wanting to leave it at home just for work. I'm just gonna wrap this up with a little story / something that's kind of been bothering me. Before COVID happened, like beginning of 2019, I was on Fuji and I was looking to get more experience as a wedding photographer. And nobody wanted to hire me as a second shooter because I shot with a crop sensor camera. And it was really all just based on the sensor size. And I just thought that was completely wrong and backwards, because the camera is it's a dual card slot camera. It can shoot really great photos. It can take really great video. It has everything that it takes to be a professional camera. But people didn't want to give me the time of day because it was crop sensor, and that has a lot to do with just the photography community and as well as YouTube videos. If you go ask, hey, should I get this Fuji or should I get this Nikon D750? Like, odds are is most people are going to say a Nikon D750 because it's full frame. But there are so many reasons why you would want to go with the Fuji instead of the Nikon D750 that people aren't even telling you. Or they're judging you but because of your camera. and it's just not cool. So that's just something I want to kind of spread out there, that crop sensor. Like, I'm team crop sensor at the moment. Everything, you know, in the camera system space can change. So, you know, next year I may be on full frame again, but it's looking like I'm going to be sticking with Fuji for a long time, maybe permanently. I don't know, but I hope that this video helped out somebody. Maybe you've just purchased a Fuji camera and you're starting to feel kind of envious of some of the pictures you're seeing from other people. Maybe you've spoken to someone and they've made you feel like you need to upgrade into full frame. Maybe you're on full frame and you're thinking that you'd like to go over to Fuji, but you're afraid that you're going to miss out on some of the image quality or lenses if you go over to Fuji. And I just hope that this video was able to help you out. Let me know in the comment section below if there's anything that you're curious about. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to kind of reach out and talk to you guys. But until the next video, guys, I appreciate your time and have a great rest of your day.